Good afternoon, everyone. Is everyone good to go? I see nobody shaking their head. So for the record, I'm Danny Smyth. I'm the Chief of Police here in Winnipeg. I'm here today to provide you an update with an occurrence that occurred on Furby Street yesterday. So at about 1:40 in the afternoon yesterday, police were summoned to the third floor of 25 Furby for a male that was physically holding a woman in the hallway on the third floor. Upon arrival, police discovered that the male had retreated with the woman into a third floor suite against her will and had barricaded the door. Police discovered that along with the woman, there was a second woman, a young child, and another male in the suite. With reason to believe the male that retreated was armed. So members now were on scene and we're dealing with what we considered an armed and barricaded situation with hostages. So an incident commander, along with crisis negotiators and the tactical support team and some other tactical resources, were summoned to help us manage the situation. So for those of you that aren't familiar with an incident commander, for us it's a senior officer who's trained and experienced in dealing with crisis situations. It is their job to manage the event with the primary focus being on the safety of the hostages, the general safety of the public in and around the area, of course the safety of our officers, and of course the safety of the suspect. And it's prioritized in that order. This event proceeded throughout the afternoon for several hours through the afternoon. At 2:18 p.m., we know that the second woman and a 3-year-old female child were either released or were managed to escape through the hallway door of the suite and were safely taken into the care of the tactical unit that was standing by. They were unharmed. We also know that at around 2:25 in the afternoon, the male who had been in the suite, not the hostage taker, but the other male, had the opportunity to escape via a balcony that was part of the suite. He managed to scale down from the third floor to the second floor and into the care and the protection of tactical officers that were nearby. The negotiators continued their efforts to engage with the male hostage taker for the release of the original female that the call came in on. As the afternoon progressed, there were elevated concerns that the safety of the hostage, elevated concerns about the safety of the hostage, and that was based on some of the actions of the male hostage taker. Under the direction of the incident commander, a plan was formulated to rescue the hostage. At approximately 5:10, the tactical support team entered the suite. The female hostage was secured and safely taken into care. The male hostage taker was shot by police during the rescue, and he died at the scene. So, of course, anytime there's a death involving the police, that sparks an IIU notification. So that's exactly what occurred there. The Independent Investigations Unit was notified, and we began to coordinate efforts with them. There are a few other facts that I think are relevant that I'd like to share with you. So at this point, none of the identities of any of the people involved in this are being publicly shared at this time. The hostage taker, although we know who he is and he's been positively identified, his next of kin have yet to be informed. And that will be the responsibility of the Independent Investigations Unit to perform that end of things. So I don't expect that his identity will come out today for sure. The male is known to us. He is a 52-year-old male. He had an extensive criminal record for violence and weapons offenses. He was on a few weapons prohibitions at the time of this event. The other relevant thing to take note, you'll recall that police are still investigating a homicide that occurred in the same building earlier in the week. A victim was discovered there on the 5th floor of the building over the Christmas holidays. We were engaged on Boxing Day and took jurisdiction on that investigation. The hostage taker is considered a person of interest for that homicide that occurred. So right now we're in the midst of kind of coordinating overlapping investigations. So to be clear, IIU will take jurisdiction and investigate the death of the hostage taker. The WPS will continue with the homicide investigation that occurred earlier in the week. And we'll also continue with the victim services and family support of those that were involved in the hostage taking. Just for clarity, even though I'm not identifying the people that were involved, the original hostage, the woman that was assaulted by the male, she was 19 years old. The second woman and the child were 33 years old and 3, respectively. And the male that escaped on the balcony was a male. So that's about all I have to share with you at the front end of this. Again, I'm in a tricky spot where we're coordinating with the Independent Investigations Unit, trying to be sensitive to the integrity of their investigation, but also trying to provide the public with enough information as well. So I'll try to answer questions. Just let's sort of set the parameter there.
So, is there anything you can say about why the man was shot in that moment?
So that'll really form part of IIUs. So these are pretty dynamic situations where there's a barricaded situation with the hostage taking. I'm really not in a position to speak to the moment that the team entered the suite, but that will form part of IIU's investigation.
So he was armed. What was he armed with?
So we believe he's armed with an edged weapon.
Did he know any of the people who were agnostic?
So we don't know for certain, but we do think he frequented the building enough that there's quite possible he was acquainted with people in the building. I know the 2 women and the child resided in the building.
Did he reside in the building?
I'm not sure if he did or not. We certainly connected him as a person of interest on the homicide that occurred on the 5th floor.
And how was the homicide victim, Farah Mohammed, connected, or was he at all connected to the victims in the second case here?
So we don't know that at all. And to be clear, from a police perspective, even though you know his name because his family was quite involved in some of the releases, we haven't positively identified the victim yet either. That's why you haven't heard us speak his identity at this point. But the commonality is going to be the building itself. We're not sure if he was connected with any of the other people.
Are there any other person of interest in the trucker's death in the second incident?
None that I'm aware of right now. Certainly that investigation is still ongoing. They're still advancing it. There are some witnesses that I think they're interested in, but that's kind of where they're at.
And did the hostage situation start because the police was trying to arrest the person of interest related to the trucker's death?
We didn't even realize at that time that they were connected. We were summoned to the building based on the commotion in the hallway on the 3rd floor.
Is there any indication why he was holding these people hostage?
No, not at this point.
When you say person of interest, I mean, is that somebody that police want to talk to or a suspect?
Well, it could be either or, right? Sometimes we don't really know until we get an opportunity to speak to somebody, but he's certainly a person of interest for us, and there's a potential he was a suspect.
At the scene yesterday, there was quite a large police presence. Are you able to speak on just how many resources were dispatched there?
So it would have been pretty extensive. That's a walk-up building, I believe 5 stories. So as I mentioned during my introduction here, the safety of the hostages, the safety of the general public, and then the safety of our officers become paramount. It's pretty routine for us to have a large presence just to either have people evacuated from the area or having them hold and secure. So resources would be required to do that.
And regarding the whole hostage situation, you mentioned that the identity. Is there any other information about the hostage taker? You mentioned that he's a 52-year-old male, right?
Yeah, that's about all I can really speak to right now. And again, the nuance here is that his death will be investigated by IIU, It'll be their responsibility to notify the next of kin, and it'll be their responsibility to, they'll manage the identity part. So I'm not in a position to speak about his identity any further at this point until some of those things are done.
And the people he held hostage, the female with the child and the other one who escaped, you mentioned that right now all of them are with the tactical support team, right?
So they were taken into the care of the tactical support team. None of them were taken into custody. They were victims in this. To my knowledge, they were all safely returned to their families. We will certainly have interest in speaking further with them once they've had a chance to recover. But none of them were physically harmed, but of course, it's a pretty traumatic thing to go through.
And they haven't mentioned anything about their relation with the hostage taker, or it was just a sudden random.
So I don't know that it was random. I'm led to believe that the hostage taker was familiar with residents in the building, but I don't know the specific relationship of the women and the man that was in the suite.
Okay, so there were two women, a child.
Two women, a child, and a 23-year-old man.
Okay, and all of them are now safe.
All of them are safe.
Okay.
So, Chief, just so it's clear, so when PST entered the suite, the last remaining female victim was.
Yeah, so there was
Taken
one
out.
hostage left, the original woman that we talked about, and then the hostage taker.
And so, and then just so I make sure I have my notes right here, so she was rescued, she was away from the hostage taker, and then the shooting happened?
So I don't know the specific details of the proximity of any of this. All of that will come out as part of the IIU investigation. As I mentioned, there were elevated concerns for her safety that necessitated a rescue plan, and the team entered the suite to rescue her. In that rescue, they ended up shooting the hostage taker. He died in the suite.
I mean, those elevated concerns, is there anything you can say about that?
Not really. Again, it's going to form, I know it doesn't make sense right now. Some of that will form part of IIU's investigation, and I think it's important to be sensitive to let them do their job.
Does the IIU investigation in any way now hamper or interfere with the investigation of the homicide, considering this individual as a person shot?
I don't think it will. We have a pretty strong working relationship with IIU. They're very different things. We'll coordinate our efforts so that we respect the jurisdiction of their investigation and at the same time help our homicide investigators advance their investigation.
More questions?
Regarding the truck driver, can you tell us, or have you found out why the truck driver ended up parking that truck on Furby Street, and what brought him to the neighborhood? Because that wasn't really the parking spot for him.
Right. So I don't know right now that we're still working that investigation. They're trying to advance that investigation to determine the very things that you're asking. As we learn more, we will certainly be in a position to share that.
And are you in touch with the BC police for the same? Because they would also want to investigate, since he is originally from BC.
So we're not necessarily going to involve the police in BC unless we need to. We have been working pretty closely with the family.
And again, I know we all have been asking the same thing, but it's just like, do you think it's just a coincidence that both these cases have happened over, a matter of few days, same building, they are related? Do you also think that both these incidents are related, and if so, how and why?
So we don't know the exact relationship there, but I don't think it's a coincidence. But clearly we're dealing with circumstances that are leaving us with the same questions that you have. I'm pretty confident our homicide investigators will be able to advance this, in addition to respecting and cooperating with IIU in their investigation.
In the release, it says, just during the rescue, members' firearms were discharged. Were there multiple service members who fired shots?
So I don't want to get into too much detail. Again, those are details for IIU. There's more than one shot. But I'm going to leave that for IIU.
Anything more? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
And if I could just